Hi, I'm Tim. Welcome and thanks for logging on. If you love what you see here, everything today is for sale. We're waking up with watches. Email me, tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details of these timepieces. We buy what we sell what we buy. We are always looking to build inventory. It's just the name of the game for us. We pay cash, we pay fast, we make the process a no-brainer. We walk you through the entirety of it and no upper limit on value paid. We will buy your entire collection of diamond set platinum Rolex. The watch box. Team Mosso at the watch box. It's a match made in heaven. Reach out to Team Mosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details. Speaking of a match made in heaven, horological heaven, the color green and the Patek Philippe Nautilus. Now this watch, which came out in 2021, was a one-year-only reference featuring the OSO 2021 green dial. It's the 5711 1A-014, and yes, I know this is the definition of a hype watch, but like a trust fund kid who turns out to be a really good guy, the watch is a sweetheart and genuinely desirable on its own merits. There's a lot to love here. It's super thin, beautiful, has an ageless design. It is evergreen, both figuratively and literally, and it's got a lot of capability. It also has something relatively new, which was only introduced back in 2019 on the 5711. And that is a hacking seconds function, courtesy of the still fairly new caliber 26330 SC. The watch is easy to wear. 40 millimeters in diameter, it's only 8.6 millimeters thick, and as I measure it, if we go from end link to end link, the total distance across the wrist, 48.8 millimeters, a really nice experience all around, surprisingly well loomed. This is a watch that has 120 meter water resistance and an enormous amount of luminescence, absolutely zero issues on that front. You can easily tell the time, and the watch does sustain that level of intensity through the night. You can even read it in the wee hours of the morning. I know I've tested with the 5711 before. The nice thing about the Nautilus is that it is a easier watch to wear than a Royal Oak. The bracelet doesn't flare out as much. The links aren't individually as thick. It is comparable maybe to the fit of the Jumbo, and even then a 5711 will fit a lot smaller on the wrist than a 15202 or a 16202. We'll pop open the clasp here, take a quick look at the bracelet, and for years I wondered why Patek Philippe went from bracelets with removable links fixed by screws to bracelets with removable links fixed by pin sleeves. This happened sometime around 2011, 2012, and I always thought it was cost cutting. I've since realized, having learned a little bit of watchmaking craft and having started down that path, people are terrible at sizing bracelets. They almost always strip out the screws. And when you have a bracelet that's this thin with super tiny screw heads, you're just begging people who have ill-fit screwdrivers to strip out those screws. And then you have stranded links and you need to drill them out, which becomes an incredibly expensive exercise given that these are Patek Philippe Nautilus links. So Patek uses pins and sleeves, which are both less likely to back out than screws, but also literally impossible to strip. You can see they are spending money here as we have these ceramic spring-loaded pin snaps so that the clamshell will remain snappy and tight and cannot aggress against and wear down the pin snaps. You see that is how that works right there. Just like that. Now in profile, you can see while the Nautilus costs more than an Aquanaut, the case is a lot more complex and the finishing far more intricate. When Gerald Genta designed the Nautilus in the 70s, he designed a lot of facets into it. He had designed bevels into it. We have both polish and satination here. This has a case back, a mid case, and a bezel. Each one of them more complicated individually than the equivalent component in something like a Aquanaut. The watch is easy to wear, and I'm going to show you now, but I also want to show you the movement, which, while a typical meat-of-the-market Patek center rotor automatic, is genuinely good looking and surprisingly accurate, as Patek guarantees its movements to be no worse than -3 + 2 seconds per day. You got to remember that a COSC Swiss chronometer is -4 + 6. So it's a good looking caliber, 45 hours of power reserve, automatic winding, unidirectional winding action. It's free sprung, 6-position adjusted, anti-magnetic silicone hairspring, Patek Philippe seal. All these pieces in concert add up to that -3 + 2 second a day guarantee. You can see the beveling as well as the polishing of the jewel and screw sinks, excellent. There's engine turning on the center of the rotor as well as on the base plate. Linear stripes across the bridges, circular stripes on the rotor, all screw heads black polished polished and chamfered. And the few places where we can see the wheels, they're either polished or satinated. This is a great looking watch that wears beautifully on the wrist. And I could even say that the 5711, though definitely not the 5726 or the 5990, this is tailor-made as a unisex option. Men can wear it, women can wear it. It could be your dress watch fitting under a cuff. It could be your sports watch taking a swim. A lovely and really well-rounded non-round watch. That is the Dash 14 and final variant of the 5711. 2 years prior, Lange did what we thought they would never do and gave us a regular production steel watch, and not just a regular production steel watch, but a regular production steel sports watch. Enter the Odysseus. This watch, 40.5 millimeters in stainless steel, represented a sea change at a Lange und Söhne, and they did their best to enter the integrated bracelet steel sports watch genre while still looking like a Lange. Hence you have these lugs which are still stepped out from a round case. We have a domed bezel. We have the panorama datum, but it's balanced out by a day. So it's both a day and a double-digit date, and Lange cleverly hid the adjustment trigger for the calendar in the crown guard structures. Now, the crown is a screw down. The watch is 120 meters water resistant. There is no shortage of lume. As you can see, it's an easy watch to read, and the preponderance of the lume is on the hands, so you can almost always tell the time even after the indices fade. And the dial is beautiful with steps and graining, satination, white gold applique frames for the date, the indices, the hands. Everything about this dial is attractive. I love the red 60, a very traditional element of watch design from honored antiquity. Now, this is one of the first 200 or so Odysseus models made, and the first 200 had something that subsequent ones did not. Do you see that? Removable end links. You can get to the spring bars and you can remove the bracelet, and then you can fit any standard 20 millimeter size strap. After the first 200 examples of the Odysseus, that went away. Now the bracelet is permabonded, and although you can remove every single link in the bracelet, you cannot remove the end links, which means you are locked into using the bracelet and the straps that Lange chooses to provide. Now you can see, it looks like Brogioli made this for Lange. Lange doesn't make cases, it doesn't make clasps. So when you see something like this, you know it came from a supplier. And undoubtedly, you've seen this fully sizable bracelet with a push-button slider trigger on IWC watches and many, many others. This is something that even other Richemont brands use, but the design of the bracelet, if not the fabrication, is Lange's. And you can see that the quality of the beveling of the interfaces of these links really creates an intricacy and a beauty. Taking a look at the case back, this is L155. It's based on the L086, but it's got two primary changes from the L086. One is the beat rate. This was the first ever 4 Hertz, 8 beat per second Lange watch, and that is simply more suitable for a sports watch that might endure high frequency vibrations or sharp concussions. The other change was the alteration of the balance cock to become a full dual anchored balance bridge fixed on both sides, again for stability against shock. We've got automatic winding, we've got 50 hours of power reserved, we've got stop seconds, we have a durable free sprung balance, we have German silver bridges and plates, we've got a platinum winding mass, we've got both polished and blued screws, stripes across the bridges, engine turning on the base plate. You can see mirror beveling on the edge of the bridges and a freehand engraved balance bridge. So the quality of the finishing here is a step above what we just saw on the Patek Philippe, and we'll throw this watch on my wrist so you can get a better sense of it. Remember, as broad as it is with the bracelet, this example and the other 199 like it have a removable bracelet, so you can take that off and put this on a custom strap. It's a great looking watch. It does wear larger than the 5711, but it doesn't wear huge, and both of them will still easily fit underneath the cuff. Now that's a great watch. The Patek is a great watch. Given a choice between the two, I think I prefer the thin delicacy of the Patek, which feels lighter on the wrist, more comfortable, less obtrusive, and frankly, there's also the historic tradition here. This is a little bit of AstroTurf from a company that has no tradition of watches in this format, whereas Patek, back to 1976, was one of the plank owners, as we'd say in the Navy, one of the very first to sail with that ship. Now, in 2016, Vacheron launched what I still consider to be one of the best developed, highest value watches in the segment. This is the Overseas Generation 3. This is the self-winding. We didn't get the black dial you see here until 2018. It's 41 millimeters in steel. It's 11.3, roughly speaking, thick. It does wear larger than either of the two watches you just saw, but unlike those two, We have a bracelet that has a quick release system, so you could pop it right off. And the watch comes with 2 straps and an extra clasp for the straps. One strap is black rubber, one strap is black leather. So you get 3 bands plus an extra clasp with this watch. Actually, before I put it all back together, let me show you what else sets this apart. You can remove every link on the Lange bracelet, but you need tools to do so, tools that are specific to that bracelet architecture. Whereas here on the Vacheron, each link on each side of the bracelet fixed by a screw, so you just need a jeweler's screwdriver to do that. And unlike the Patek, the individual links aren't super thin, so the screw heads aren't super narrow, so you're less likely to strip them out. You have a sleeved micro adjustment on each side of the clasp. Each side gives you 1.5 millimeters of tool-free adjustment, just like that. Twin trigger clasp, a Maltese cross that comes together and forms the Vacheron logo, and all of it intricately and beautifully finished, including the interior crevices of the individual links. Lots to love here. The watch has 150 meters of water resistance, and it's anti-magnetic thanks to a paramagnetic ring around the movement. The anti-magnetic rating here is 25,000 ampere per meter. Remember, an anti-magnetic watch per ISO 764 is 4,800 ampere per meter. This is 25,000. We've got a 22 karat rotor, not 21, not 18, not rose gold plated. 22 karat engraved, 4 different finishes, a compass rose motif, ceramic bearings for high efficiency, 2 barrels, 60-hour power reserve, 4 hertz beat rate. Both the watch as a whole and the movement individually, Geneva hallmark finish quality. And we've got 5-position adjustment, which is the high horology and chronometer standard. You can see that there's solarization on the barrel that's visible. We have mirrored anglage on the edge of the bridges, which you can see lighting up here as I angle the watch through the light. There's also polishing, interior beveling in the jewel and the screw sinks. Screw heads are black polished and chamfered. We also have a linear Côte de Genève across the bridges, satination on the wheels, and there is engine turning on the base plate. It is a truly impressive movement. The only feature it lacks that the other 2 watches have is a hacking seconds function, but this watch does feature a quick set date. The dial is lush black lacquer with white gold hands, logo, framed for the date, as well as indices. There's no shortage of luminescence on this watch, which you can see quite easily. And in terms of price, they sell for about $26,000 to $28,000 pre-owned. Retail is $25 grand, so they do hold their value. They even gain a little bit. But compared to what you're going to pay for an Odysseus or the hundreds of thousands of dollars for that green Dash 14 Nautilus, this is a really appealing option, a watch that you would feel comfortable wearing every day, while also feeling that you hadn't really made any compromises in quality or pedigree, as the design of the Overseas stretches back to Vacheron's 1977 reference 222 sports watch. This is very much in keeping with that tradition. These are much loved, and I have to say I understand why. The yellow gold with the green dial and the white gold with the blue dial, I know everyone associates these with John Mayer, but I prefer not to. Honestly, you define your own Rolex, and your story becomes its story. What story are you going to tell about this? Of course, an absolutely stunning 116509 in white gold. It's a massive thing. Solid gold case back, oyster case, solid center links, end links, thick gauge clasp, meaty on the hand, but still a 40 millimeter watch. Do a quick lume shot here so you can get a sense of this Rolex chromolite blue lume and the differential color of the hands featured on this model. That's a feature not commonly seen, but it does make it quite easy to judge the time at a glance. Throw the watch on the wrist, my wrist 16 centimeters circumference, and it wears beautifully. Comfortable, flat, flush. I would recommend it for a wrist as small as 14 centimeters circumference. And actually, I know quite a few women who wear this generation of the Daytona, so ladies, line up. You guys are just as eligible for this incredible timepiece experience, and it is very sporty with a combination of white gold, red, and blue on the dial. There's something about this watch that's just evocative of motorsports, even if you don't know that it's the official winner's gift at the 24 Hours of Daytona sports car race. You can tell that the combination of the tachometer, the 100-meter water resistance, automatic winding, the chronograph, the lume, the 100-meter water resistance possibly being the most unexpected element, but a very big part of what makes this a super sporting reference. It is equally adept lounging or swimming at Daytona Beach as it is timing vehicles on the high banks of the track. Now you can see this is gray gold, or a white gold that's white all the way through that never needs to be rhodium plated. So this is the good stuff. Rolex gives you a clasp that's actually double locking. You can see we have the clamshell lock. That's the obvious piece, but we also have this articulated and spring-loaded beacon hook. These two things latch together, and then you can't just pull it open. You actually have to unlatch it. So you've got those two locking factors for absolute security. Pop that open, withdraw straw. Now we have the Easy Link system. Inside the clasp, 5 millimeters of tool-free in and out adjustment that gives you the ability to make changes on the fly. And then there are 3 pairs of divots drilled inside the clasp. It is held to the bracelet using a spring bar, and with your spring bar tool, you can actually change the anchoring point of the bracelet inside the clasp. So there's 3 ways between the removable links, the Easy Link, and the divots, 3 ways to size this up. The watch is made entirely by Rolex. Rolex makes case, clamps, bracelets, dials, hands, movements. Heck, Rolex even makes the lubricants used in the movements. Aside from perhaps Swatch as a group and the world of Seiko, Rolex may be the world's most integrated manufacturer. The hands, the logo, and the indices here are white gold because over time, white gold will not be inclined to tarnish or discolor. We have caliber 4130 inside, column wheel vertical clutch, chronograph system, hacking seconds, 4 hertz beat rate, 44 pivot joules, 72-hour power reserve, anti-magnetic and shock resistant. There's a lot to love right here. This is a watch that has tremendous versatility. I will say that given all the watches you just saw, this is probably my choice right here, although it's going to be a dead heat because every watch I just featured is hugely desirable and I can see the merits. They compete, though, for the same kind of buyer. On the other hand, watches like this are in a different world. In 2008, Vacheron launched the modern Historiques American 1921, which was 40 millimeters, basically 40 by 40. In 2017, late in 2017, for the 2018 model year, Vacheron launched this, which is the Historiques American 1921 midsize. No longer 40 millimeters, this is 36.5. It's still just over 7 millimeters thick, and you can see it's a monoblock case. Everything loads through the case back. The bezel and the case are all one piece. Exquisitely hand-welded lugs. It's only about 42.5 millimeters from lug to lug. A lovely grained dial with blackened white gold modified Breguet-style hands. Art Nouveau-style Arabic numerals with open 6s and open 9s. Sunken sub-register, rose gold Vacheron logo. And the exact same movement you get on the 40mm version of the watch. Vacheron's manufacturer caliber 4400. One large and beautifully solarized mainspring barrel gives you 65 hours of power reserve. It's a 4 hertz beat rate adjusted in 5 positions. That's critical for really high-end watches to be adjusted in at least 5 positions. Geneva hallmark on both the movement and the case, because again, this is a post-2012 Vacheron. From about mid-2012, Geneva hallmark became a full watch standard. The movement is ambitious in a way a lot of Vacheron calibers aren't. You can see that every jewel and screw sink has been internally beveled and mirror polished. You could see the solarization on the barrel beneath the barrel bridge. You could see how deep and lustrous the stripes are. Even though they're narrow stripes, there's a definite shading gradient from side to side, which is always the mark of the best striping. The bevels, though narrow, are beautifully mirrored and rounded, and we get 1, 2, 3 interior angles where bevels meet in a sharp crease. There are a heck of a lot of movements, including from Vacheron, that do not have those interior angles. Screw heads are black polished, and locating pins, which help to locate bridges on the base plate, those have been mirror polished on their head, and you can see mirror polishing on each of these locating pins with a very tight and even engine turning on the base plate. A lovely watch, and truth be told, what we call the 1921 today is actually based on 2 watches, one from 1919 and one from 1921. And this watch is sort of an homage to both. As you can see, super easy to wear. I want to recommend this for wrists even my size or even a little bit larger. A 36.5 millimeter rectangular watch or square watch or cushion case or a tonneau. It's going to wear more like a 40 millimeter round watch. And that's exactly how this reads for me. I would not hesitate to wear this on a larger wrist. This is by no means a small watch or a lady's watch. It's just a more traditional size, and there are a few brands that are more traditional than Vacheron. All right, from traditional to outrageous. A quick history lesson of Urwerk. Urwerk launched in 1997, created by Felix Baumgartner, his brother Thomas, and designer Martin Fry. Thomas eventually went off to focus on machining at a high level. He became a very specialized type of artisan. Felix Baumgartner became the youngest ever member of the AHCI at the time, the Cool Kids Club of independent watchmakers. Martin Fry stayed on as the industrial designer behind the look of Urwerk, just as Felix Baumgartner was the watchmaker. Now, they came out with their first watch in 1997. It was the UR-101, and That was the Millennium Falcon. In about 2003, they launched the 103.3, which peeled back the top of the case and made their satellite wandering hour system more visible. And that 103.3 was really the foundational modern Urwerk. It was really what put them on the map. In 2007, they created the UR-201, which included a retrograde system along with the satellite hours. The next year, the 202 came out that added automatic winding, and in 2010, they added the UR-210, which is a more advanced version of the 2R2. This is a 2018 model year, 25-piece limited edition in black platinum and titanium. This is the UR-210, sometimes called the Royal Hawk or the Black Platinum. Black Platinum at Urwerk, really since the beginning, has been reserved for the most exclusive models. It's a stealthy treatment of platinum. Only you and your watch know this is special, and you can really feel it in the hand. Now, the movement, let's do a quick loom shot, because there is actually some loom here. The movement works exactly as you would imagine. There's a satellite hour. Now you're looking at 4 o'clock. Now you're looking at 4:35 down here. The oncoming hour enters stage right as the outgoing exits stage left. Do you see that retrograding index? That is what sets every descendant of the UR-201 apart from other Urwerk watches. In the upper left-hand corner, you have the winding efficiency indicator, which lets you know whether the winding system is keeping up with the power demands of the watch. And in the upper right-hand corner, you have a power reserve. This is an automatic winder. It's got a 39-hour power reserve, and you've got that wonderful scrolling system down at 6 o'clock. So actually a surprising amount of loom here. You can see a tiny bit of loom on the case back. Now, taking a look at the reverse side, you have the ability to set the winding efficiency by closing off air pipes that feed turbines. It's true. These are little turbines that are spun by air, and what you're looking at here is a system with adjustability built in. So I can decide how much winding efficiency I want, whether it's a full stop to preserve the winding system from concussive sports, reduced winding efficiency to give me a little bit of winding during vigorous activity, or I could be a desk dweller, which is basically what I am here at Watchbox, in which case I would want full winding efficiency. Quite a bit of trust of the customer by Urwerk. Inside, well, two things. One, you could see that we've got an upper movement, including the winding efficiency system, which is patented, the power reserve, the satellites, and the retrograde. That's all Urwerk manufacture watchmaking, as is the efficiency system that regulates the winding. There's a Zenith Elite base. On top, we have a carousel. We have the individual satellites, and then we have the base plate. A lot of advanced materials, super light, anti-magnetic, and if you look closely, you'll even find traditional finish. You might not expect it, but it's here. The watch is about 43.8 millimeters from side to side, and it's 53 millimeters from end to end. So I'm going to show you how that wears and how that looks. It looks like this. It actually does wear on a 16 centimeter circumference wrist. I think a smaller wrist might struggle with it, but I would wear this quite happily and really enjoy the avant-garde view of the Urwerk module, as well as the reliability and robustness of the underlying Zenith caliber. Taking a quick look at something that might even be more out there. This is a 2019 launch from Bethune, possibly the coolest ever version of the award-winning and iconic DB28. The watch you see here is the 28 yellow tones. This is not a gold watch. This is all polished, mirrored, grade 5 titanium that has been fired briefly and carefully to create an even orange-yellow tone. We have the traditional spring-loaded floating lugs so that the watch will conform to your wrist. It's only 11.7 millimeters thick, 42.6 millimeters in diameter, and there's a variability about the lug, so it's going to match you. Taking a quick look at the dial, absolutely spectacular. 2 barrels, manual wind, 6 days of power reserve. The patented self-adjusting barrels cannot accidentally be overwound. Look at all of that black polish. Some watches give you screws that are black polished or a swan's neck regulator. At Bethune, almost the entirety of the movement and the dial black polished. Bethune making its own cases, dials, and movements, controlling every part of the fabrication, and they do that so that they can keep volumes low. Suppliers don't want to hear that you need 12 dials or 6 cases. Only a few dozen of this model have ever been crafted since its 2019 2019 launch, and just over 3,000 de Bethune watches have been made since the company's debut in 2002. We have a moon phase at the base that is spherical and driven by bevel gears, 122-year adjustment interval. We have a titanium and white gold patented balance. The moon phase system is patented. 1, 2, 3 shock protection springs. That's called triple shock protection, or triple parachute. That's patented. The watch has a flat hairspring that's 2 elements cut apart, shaped by hand, and clamped back together to breathe concentrically like an overcoil, but have the flatness, the thinness, and the shock resistance of a flat hairspring. Solarization on the barrels, mirrored anglage on the edge of the barrel bridge, Côte de Bethune stripes on the edge of the barrel bridge, a black polished center cap, globes of polished titanium acting as the hour indices, and on the reverse side you can see the power reserve indicator for the watch, as well as engine turning, anglage, black polishing of screw heads, and satination on the levers of the power reserve system. The watch has a buckle that includes both light and dark firing. And by the way, if you ever scratch through the oxidation, when the watch goes back for service at de Bethune, they can refire it and entirely restore the yellow coating, because it's not a coating, it's an oxidation. I don't know there's any other company that can restore the coloration of a coated watch, but de Bethune is unique in that regard. Wearing easily on my wrist, this isn't even close to a difficult fit. Feather light, accommodating, and I believe fewer than 3 dozen of these ever created. Exclusivity is assured. Plus, it's a GPHG Aigu d'Or winner, as the original DB28, very similar to this watch, won the equivalent of Best Picture at the Oscars of Watchmaking in 2011. Now, a little giant that's going to knock your socks off. You've seen Lange movements before, and you may even recognize that this is the second generation Lange 1 movement, the 121 caliber that came out in 2015. Bridge architecture is a little bit different. It moves up to a free-sprung balance. The access ports on the 3/4 bridge of the original L901 are gone. And there are other detail changes, but what you might not notice is that this is the L121.2, which means it's a moon phase version, and this is the 2021 36.8 millimeter white gold, a Lange und Söhne little Lange 1 moon phase gold flux with an aventurine glass blue dial. Fired enamel on a precious metal dial base. It has a translucent, rich blue coating with metal deposits that look like the infinite depth of the cosmos, appropriate to a moon phase. Look at the indices in between the quarter Roman numerals. They're little stars, white gold stars applied. We have a solid gold moon phase disc that only needs to be adjusted once every 122 years, a power reserve indicator from down to up, and the watch has a hacking seconds function, so you can synchronize the seconds hand if you wish to a reference time. 3 days of power reserve, a beautiful combination of enamel, metallic flakes, white gold hands, indices, numerals, and date frame. Flip it all over, the movement, gorgeous. 3/4 plate with stripes, mirrored anglage on the edge, freehand engraving on the balance cock, black polished case clamp screws, capped the escape wheel cock and swan's neck regulator, a free-sprung balance for greater stability against shock and precision of regulation, and the regulation in 5 positions, chronometer and high horology style. Look at the shading of those stripes from side to side, the use of golden chaton cups to hold pivots. That's exactly how it was done in the pocket watch era of East German watchmaking. You'd have 3/4 bridges. You'd have this nickel copper zinc alloy used for bridges and plates, with the copper giving it that golden hue. And because it wasn't possible to directly press jewels precisely into bridges and plates back then, a precision golden chaton cup would be made. The jewel would be pressed into that, and the cup would be fixed into the bridges and plates using screws. These screws are fired. Other screws are black polished. Why choose one when you can have both? There's both media blasting and engine turning on the base plate. This is the definition of gorgeous. Don't think of the little Lange as a lady's watch, because the Lange doesn't, and I certainly don't. I'd be happy to wear this watch. This is a beautiful dress watch, absolutely extraordinary, with a dial that actually outdoes the much-loved Saxonia Thin copper blue. This is even better, as it combines that dial with even higher levels of detailing, little nods and winks like the gold stars, and of course the Lange 1 being part of the tripartite core canon of Lange, along with the Dotograph and the Zeitwerk. If you're going to own a Lange 1, why not own one of the best? And that's exactly what this is. If you love the watches you've seen today, reach out to me. I am tmosso at thewatchbox.com for purchase and pricing details.